You should see you are live, ma'am.
Right, but it didn't start right away. So I think we're going to wait a minute.
Okay. You are live now. I see you. You should see
Okay.
you are live, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, welcome. My name is Dr. Veronica C. Garcia, and I'm superintendent of the Santa Fe Public Schools. Welcome to our second town hall on remote learning for grades 3 through grade 6. Para servicios de traducción en español, por favor, marca al 701-802-5152, el número de acceso 4277-932. El doctor James Lujan estará disponible para traducir esta noche. Bienvenidos. So welcome. We're so excited to have you here. Our new remote learning program for the 2021 school year has been reimagined, reinvented, and rebooted. So you can expect a very different remote learning program and experience for this school year. And tonight, my colleagues will introduce themselves before they answer a question. And the live chat will be open at 7:15 so that you can post your questions. We will do our best to answer all of them. Some may be duplicates, and so not every single question we're going to post. And we will go back, and those questions that were not answered tonight will be included in the FAQs that are on our website. So again, thank you for joining us. This is a series of town halls. We will continue with them in coming weeks on various topics. But tonight, we're focusing on parents of students in grades 3 through 6. So we're going to start with our deputy superintendent. Will the full remote model of instruction be different from last school year?
Good evening. My name is Linda Sims. I'm the deputy superintendent for the Santa Fe Public Schools. And yes, it will be significantly different. In fact, we have really changed, and as Dr. Garcia says, and rebooted this summer. And what we've done is literally turn things around from what you saw last spring. Last spring, you will admit, and we all have to admit, that it came upon us very quickly. Our teachers did not have professional development and had not been involved in online teaching in much of their career. Yes, some teachers did have online skills and digital skills, digital tools in their toolbox, if you will. But for the most part, teachers were teaching in their classrooms, using their smart boards every day, using their textbooks, etc. So when they got into online teaching, we tried our best to help them through those 3 months, but it was difficult for everyone. And again, we were not an online district. So we have spent this summer, again, reimagining what we want to do for this coming year, because our goal and what we have to do is ensure you that we will have your children have and expect a full year's growth. And how are we going to do that? We decided we had to start again on building lessons for our teachers that were state-of-the-art, engaging, and rigorous based on the New Mexico state standards. These lessons are digital lessons with digital tools that have instruction, again, based on the standards. What we're going to do is provide professional development for the next 2 weeks for our teachers to learn how to use these lessons, discover the tools that we've brought in. And the people that have done this are experts in the field. Many teachers have done this for a number of years, and so we really were indebted to them and to our departments such as teaching and learning, special ed, multicultural and language, etc., have all helped to build these fabulous lessons. As they move forward through these 4 weeks of lessons in these content areas, we know that our teachers will become familiar. The kids, I think, your students will be excited because I think it'll be new for them. I think it'll be exciting to have these new tools and have some fun being engaged in a different way. And that's what I mean about reimagined. As far as the platform, we heard you. as during the year in our surveys, that you wish that we were on one platform. So your wish is our command. We will be on open access for grades 3 through 12. And also, let me just talk to you for a minute about the instructional materials. You may be used to having hard books coming home for the homework, but quite honestly, most teachers and most of us have been using online materials for the last 4 years. In fact, Santa Fe Public Schools is way ahead of the game because we are using online materials and we're not having to depend on hard books to go home at this point. In fact, recently this summer, we purchased all brand new math textbooks, but they're again online. The only hardback book is the hardback of the workbook. So we will be distributing the workbook at some point for the elementary 3 through 6. At this point, the only other thing I need to say, and I'll probably say it 2 or 3 times, but school starts August 20th. So we're going to be very excited to see you come back.
Thank you, Ms.
Dr.
Singh.
Kirshner.
Thank you, Ms. Singh. What does a day in the life of a remote student look like?
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Romero, the Associate Superintendent for Instruction and Support, and I had the opportunity to work with my colleagues, principals, and teachers in looking at schedules for online learning or remote learning this coming school year. And so what I'm going to do now is share my screen and walk you through the day in a life of a 4th grade student in the Santa Fe Public Schools. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
We can.
Sure. Okay. First, I want to explain what synchronous learning is and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning is when our students are online with the teacher and there are live lessons and interactions between the teacher and the student. Asynchronous is when a student is not participating in live interactive lessons with the teacher, but they're completing activities independently. So let's say we have Luke Smith. I'll use my nephew, who's a student at Romita Thomas. And he would start his day by getting his Chromebook at 8 o'clock, completing a daily check-in. And this check-in is just an opportunity for the teacher to see how Luke is feeling for the day before his class gets started. Class would then start at 8:30, where he'd join his entire class of maybe 23 students, synchronously or live, where the teacher is providing a direct instruction delivery of a reading lesson to 23 students. So she's interacting with the kids, she's checking for understanding, she's providing some guided practice on a particular skill in reading, before then releasing kids to do work independently. And that's just a quick, like 20-minute whole class direct instruction opportunity. So Luke, for example, on Monday would stay with the teacher from 8:50 to 9:20, about 30 minutes, to work in a small group with maybe 4 other kids. So the rest of his classmates would exit the Google Meet to complete independent activities related to the lesson that was delivered for reading. And then 30 minutes later, after the teachers worked with a small group of kids, the students would come back together and the teacher would read a story to the children. It's called a read aloud. And just go over some comprehension strategies that maybe she taught during the lesson earlier in the morning. At this point, it's about 9:40. They have a break, short break, but then students would come back to, once again, all 23 students in the class would come back, have a whole group class lesson for about 20 minutes, but this time in math. And the teacher is once again delivering the lesson for the day, interacting with students, providing guided practice, answering questions. before again releasing students to either work independently, or she would pull back or keep back 4 or 5 students to reinforce the skill that she was teaching in math. Then students would break for lunch, and it's about an hour break that students have to eat lunch, and it gives the teacher time to prepare for the afternoon. So when they come back at 12 o'clock, this particular day, this 4th grade teacher is teaching science, and she's providing a very, once again, abbreviated direct instruction short mini lesson or lesson in science for about 25 minutes. And then from there, this particular 4th grade class has specials at the end of the day.
What are specials? What are specials?
Specials include art, music, PE, computer, sometimes library at different school sites. So on Monday, Luke participates in PE. So after he finishes the direct instruction whole class science lesson, he would then jump into another interactive 30-minute session, live session with his PE teacher. So then
This
for
is
the
I'm sorry, Ms. Romero, but this is just an example. I mean, different grades, how the teachers teach this will look different. But what will remain the same for everybody is that kids will have a very definite schedule. Parents will be able to plan. They'll know what their kids are having every day. They're going to have a lot more face time with their teachers than they did in the spring. I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you. And then the rest of the day, Luke has an opportunity to finish assignments asynchronously or independently, not being logged in live sessions with the teacher. But then we're also bringing kids back at the very end of the day, whole class, just to do an end of the day check-in or closure for the day. This is a typical, like I said, it'll look different at different sites because specials are incorporated at different times during the day for different grade levels. But on Wednesdays are going to look a little different for everyone in the district. Wednesdays in the morning.
For all elementary kids.
Right, for all elementary kids, K through 5 or sometimes 6th grade, depending on the school. From 8 to 10:30, the teacher would be having a daily check-in with the whole class. So a very, gather everyone in a synchronous way just to check in. But then for the rest of the time, the teacher may decide, you know what, I have these 4 students that really need support in reading, so I'm going to work with this particular group, while the rest of the kids will have the remainder of the day to complete assignments or activities independently at home. But this is an opportunity to check in the morning with all students, but then work with small groups or one-on-one.
So there will be schedules, students will be scheduled throughout that day, possibly with the teacher, depending on what they might need.
Correct.
Okay, and these 2 sections took longer, so we're going to need to move a little bit faster through that. Thank you, Ms. Romero. Ms. Sink,
Sure.
I know you wanted to add a couple more things about what a day in the life of a remote student might look like.
A couple of points that I wanted to add is that we will also have the opportunity in the check-in in the morning for the SEL time, which is the social emotional learning time that we do have curriculum for. And so every morning we've put time in for that. And later in this evening, you're going to hear a lot more about it. The other part to this schedule, one thing that we heard from you is that you wanted a similar schedule throughout the district for your different kids. We've heard you, and what we'll need and what the teachers will need is your help also. And that help is around the routines at home. If you can have your kids on the computer before class starts, have the computer at the same place in the same room every day. So there's a routine. Your child is at the computer in the same place every day, ready to go. This will help us have a structured environment, and it will help with the teacher get ready for class immediately. And the last question that has come up to us is, how a child can benefit from remote learning. And just very simply said, remote learning will help build 21st century skills. There isn't a job, there isn't a career or a college that doesn't use all of these digital tools in online learning. So this can only help your student be equipped for those opportunities in their lives. So thank you.
Thank you. And one thing that we've really focused on is social emotional learning. You'll be hearing more about that from Ms. O'Brien a little bit later in this town hall, but a lot of training and a lot of thought. And that's the relational aspect, right, of teaching and learning and connecting with those students in this year more than ever, because they're going to be with brand new teachers for the most part. Connecting online is possible and will happen. But we really are putting a focus on the relational aspect as we go into the school year. Ms. Romero, are families going to be trained in using this new platform, open access?
Yes, absolutely. We have developed some webinars for families on topics from how to navigate the platform to how to support their children at home in a remote setting. And these trainings will also include aspects of social emotional support for children at home.
What's the role of a parent during remote learning model?
We're going to continue to collaborate with families and ensure that there's optimal learning experiences. But the role of the parent is we want to hear you, we want to support you, we want to ensure that there's communication between the school site and teacher. And so we've created these opportunities to check in with teachers, but your role is very critical. And going back to what Deputy Sink said, it's creating routines and structures at home to support that. But we are here to support you.
My understanding is that we're also going to have webinars and training for parents. We're going to figure out how to, at the schools, whether the first couple of weeks we use digital coaches or instructional coaches to be available to help parents if they don't know how to log in or need to help their student. So there will be training and support. But I also understood that the way the lessons are structured, the parent will not need to be standing with their child the whole time, that they will be able to work much more independently. And I see you're shaking your head and everybody's agreeing with me. So that's a good thing. Next, I've heard that too much screen time may be harmful. Is this true? Dr. Ryan?
Yeah, I'd like to take that. Actually, we're confusing screen time, passive instruction where they sit like in front of a television and just watch something or gaming and active time. So yes, there are some concerns when students are just passively sitting in front, listening without engaging either cognitively or physically with the instruction. But there's also great research that shows that students that do actively participate in academic resources develop skills at a much higher rate, certainly much higher than sitting at home and playing on a gaming console. So we have looked at the research. We include that in our design of our learning environments. We as Ms. Romero has shown, use an integrated approach. So sometimes you're online, sometimes you're face-to-face, sometimes you're on a break.
It's age appropriate, right? And for all up from pre-K through 12th grade, Dr. Ryan?
That's correct. You'll see that as you get towards the high school level, the intensity of the instruction is at a higher level. At the lower levels at PK, there's less of that pressure, if you will, and more time for interaction.
I know that I want to ask you something. Parents got a robocall, and I've been asked about this. We ask parents to do what right now with their devices if they have them, and why?
Yeah, so for our younger grades, parents that have a student in kindergarten, first, second grade that have an iPad, we have a new iPad so that it can access content and resources more efficiently. And so we're asking parents to bring their old device in between 9 and 4:30 tomorrow. And we will swap that out with a brand new one as long as you can bring the device in and the power supply. You should have gotten with your registration a student ID number, and that will help the process move forward. And then next week, we're going to be working with the older grades. And if you have a device that's not working or can't connect to the internet, you can stop by and pick up a new one. In fact, at any time from 8 to 5, you can call our student help desk, which is 467-HELP, or at any time in the day, you can email us at studenthelpdesk@Santa Fe Public Schools, and we will contact you the next day.
And that number again is 467-HELP, but turn on those devices. That was the key message. Turn on the device and make sure that it's operable so that we have plenty of time before the 20th to take care of that problem. It might be something very simple. So if
And
you
we'll
haven't
also-
already, when you're done with this town hall, turn on your child's device and make sure
We'll
it's
also send some updates over the internet so that the system is ready to go for the school year.
Okay, so I think we've answered a couple of these. What about students that don't have internet access, Dr. Ryan, or sufficient internet access?
So we know that this is a multifaceted problem because some people don't have internet access because they can't afford it. So we have programs that can provide access, like through Comcast. We also provide a Wi-Fi. If students do not have access, we'll provide a Wi-Fi with the device. Again, 467-HELP to let us know if you need that access. We also realize there's some parts of our community that are in the mountains that do not get good cell coverage, and therefore the MiFi device won't work as well. We've partnered with the city to increase the bandwidth so that it broadcasts out into the parking areas so that people could come to our schools, the libraries, community centers, and be able to access internet that way. And we're at a point now where if you can't get access, we're going to have someone help diagnose that and get you back up. We want every kid to have internet.
Thank you. You know, we've been asked, and I'll just answer these, when will we have face-to-face instruction? And for everybody, I mean, I guess it will just mean under hybrid. I don't think it'll be this school year that we'll go back to a traditional program, but stranger things have happened. Maybe the virus, you know, the infection rates will go down, we'll have a vaccine. But right now there are two different models, remote and hybrid. The hybrid model, and we'll have a whole town hall on hybrid, but basically one group of students, group A, are in person with the teacher 2 days a week. Everybody is remote on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday they flip. The group that was in front of the teacher will be on full remote, and the students that were on full remote Monday and Tuesday will be in person with the teacher Thursday and Friday. And I think that's a ways off yet. Right now, we're waiting for our plan to be approved by the PED. We will be on remote the first 9 weeks. At that point, we will look as infection rates fall below 1.05. We will then slowly start bringing kids back to school. And I just want to give a plug that you'll be seeing future town halls on just all the safety measures that we've put in place, maybe more in depth on special education and other topics that may be important to you. Also, can we switch from remote to hybrid and vice versa? It's not going to be that simple. And so, you know, we'll do our best to accommodate you, but right now, that's why we've asked parents to fill out the survey. And we still need to reach the parents of about 8,000 kids. And that's quite a task. So if you did not fill out the survey that you want to go full remote for the rest of the school year, because we're all starting on full remote or in hybrid, please contact your school. That would save them a phone call. Leave your name, student's date of birth, their student ID, their grade, and let them know that you are choosing for the full year, full remote or hybrid, okay? And again, you can go back and look through your email. You may have found a survey that was sent to you about a week ago. Let's see, what else? Will grades be given, Ms. Sink?
Yes, Santa Fe Public Schools will continue to follow traditional letter grading system. There will be a minimum of 2 assignments per week to be graded. And of course, this may differ per grade. And I think that's all for now, Dr. Garcia.
And is it required?
It is.
Yes, it's different than this spring. Santa Fe Public Schools chose to do grades last in the spring, but now they are required for all schools. And attendance will be taken every day. That is another requirement, which will be a little bit different. Will my child still receive language supports in a hybrid remote model? So if I'm an English language learner, or I'm in a bilingual program?
Yes, the Santa Fe Public Schools Language and Cultural Department has designed units and lesson plans to model those best practices of face-to-face and online teaching. And they're based on that foundational knowledge of cultural responsiveness and cultural acquisition. And this doesn't matter whether you're in dual language program, a transitional, a heritage, or a maintenance. The English language learners will still have time during the week for learning English skills. In 2nd through 3rd grade, it's 45 minutes per week. And in 4th and 5th grade, it's 30 minutes every other day.
And 6th graders, 30 minutes per day. So lots of instruction there. We're going to go on to special education. And so how will my child receive their special education services? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I'm Julie Lucero, Executive Director of Special Education. So Dr. Garcia, the question, how will my child receive their special education services? So in the model of remote learning, the expectation is that all students continue to receive their individual education plan services, and that would be the case in any model of learning.
And when students are learning in the remote model, do schools still have to provide special education?
Absolutely. The expectation is that students with disabilities will receive all of the services, which would include their resource setting, or if they're in a self-contained setting, also the related service, which would be speech, OT, PT, or social work. With the schedule that Ms. Romero shared earlier, there are times in there where those services can be provided to students, and also additional time where one-on-one time can be met with their individual teachers or a provider if needed.
Can IEP teams meet remotely by video conferencing or telephone? Is that allowed?
Absolutely. Federal law has always allowed families and schools to agree on having remote IEPs. Santa Fe Public Schools plans to meet and hold meetings through video conferencing, such as Google Meets or through telephone. You know, during the spring, we were able to meet the needs of parents. Some could meet through video conferencing, others could only meet us through phone. So we can be very accommodating and flexible to meet the needs of parents. And we have actually already started working on IEPs, and they're being scheduled. So many of you may have already received phone calls scheduling that time.
And what if a child's evaluation is coming up? It seems like that might be tough.
Right. So we have just purchased online evaluation tools so that we can continue evaluating our students. Of course, we can use current data that we have available if the remote situation may not work with students, to continue eligibility and also to continue to meet the needs and assess what students may need. Also, when it is safe, we're hoping to be able to do more in-person evaluations for those students that require that. So we do have a plan, but also evaluations will start remotely within the week.
Excellent. And Mrs. Sarah, we've heard that. How is Part B funding going to be used to support children with disabilities in our district?
So a little bit about Part B funding. We have two types of funding for special education, our operational dollars, which is funded by our state. And then we have our Part B funding, which is our federal funding. And the funding, Idea B funding, can only be used for excess cost for providing free appropriate public education to students with disabilities. So this cost can include anything that is above what a general education student receives. So it can be for something specific like an educational assistant, a specific nurse related service, specific materials. A good example might be our students that are deaf and hard of hearing will require additional devices to help them through remote. So we can use those dollars to help provide that.
Thank you. You know, this next question has multiple questions. But I'm anxious to hear the answer for this. So how will services be provided for children who receive multiple special education services in a week, like OT, PT, SLP, etc.? Or will work be modified to accommodate services being scheduled or taken in consideration that children's days are longer due to the extra time they're out of class? And will lesson plans be shared with us in advance so we can assist our children in transitions? A little complicated.
Yes, I'll go ahead and start with students who receive multiple special education services. One thing that really worked during the springtime is our related service providers were able to co-treat our students. So either they joined a classroom teacher and worked with the teacher to provide either their speech or their OT. Also, another thing is our speech pathologists and our occupational therapists were able to treat students together in groups. They were very successful providing services in that manner. And that also helped students with the amount of screen time and still seemed to meet the needs of students. Of course, we will take each individual student's needs depending on how that works. It could, maybe co-treating isn't the way, but we want to approach and have as many ideas as possible in order to meet the needs of students. That is our primary goal, is to meet the needs of individual needs of students. And of course,
at the end of the day, it just goes back to the IEP, right?
right,
I mean,
it goes
the
back to
driver
that
for everything.
IEP. Correct. Now, the other question about lessons, we are posting lessons. We're trying to communicate as best as possible. Our students with autism, getting out their visual schedules to parents to help facilitate that. Right now, we have our autism training that we are providing to our teachers and principals as well. And it's actually fantastic. So we're really trying to provide the best lessons that we can in remote setting or in any setting.
Excellent.
And I think the last question, did I cover all of those?
You did. And I want to just ask you one more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure parents will have special ed questions in the chat. But how do we support students in special ed if their teacher is teaching remotely? What is the game plan to meet hours virtually, and particularly for life skills class? And I could see where that would be a challenge.
Right. So our intent is to meet all IEP minutes. Of course, if we have a shortened day, then we would have to adjust to meet the needs to meet the schedule needs as well. But there's also additional time in there. If students just need more time, it's built in the schedule. Now, as far as our life skills, for example, Ms. Romero shared a schedule that was from 8:30 to 1:30 with some breaks in there. So we are working with those teachers who have their students all day to build in time to kind of meet the needs in that same way. So if it's 5 hours, somehow we would get that time in there for that. And that would include their related service time, kind of try to make it completely comprehensive so that students are engaged and they're active and their needs are being met. So we are working with those individual teachers coming up within this week to provide training. How can we meet those students' needs best? Because they really are with one teacher, in some cases, all day. So how do we do that in a remote setting? So those are conversations that are taking place. We've worked out recommended schedules to do that. And then another component is we are building professional development, not only for teachers, but also some training for our parents at home. How can they help? What kind of support do we need to provide them so that their students can be successful in this model?
That's a constant theme throughout. I know through instructional technology, curriculum and instruction, special education, we're all working together to support parents. That's something we heard loud and clear from the surveys. And there'll be webinars and different ways for us to support parents and families. And today, I just finished a wonderful meeting with the Interfaith Coalition for Public Education and with our coordinator for volunteer programs. And there will be a lot more access to tutoring and a lot more access for support and just helping, fill that role to support our kids, because we know it's tough for our parents who are also working and trying to support their children. So yay, volunteers, because we're really going to be using them for all of our children. just a quick kind of get off of special ed for a minute, but it applies to special education students, applies to all students. Will children have access to actual books? How will that work?
Well, I'll speak to that, and Linda will also as well. We're super excited because we are working to create virtual classroom libraries and libraries for school sites based on interest and reading level. So we are working on that. And we're really excited because we have a partnership with the City of Santa Fe Library so that every kid has a library card and they can access thousands of books online.
That's wonderful. That was one of my favorite things, was to have a library card. And so this will be great for the students. Yes, Ms. Singh.
Yes.
And I'll just reiterate again that our instructional materials, and for instance, in 3rd and 4th grade, we have for English language arts, you've heard of ReadyGen, the materials that our teachers are using, but all of our materials are online. So the teachers will have access and the students will have access. So no worries there.
And we are encouraging a lot of communication with families. We're encouraging people to return communication within 24 hours. Within our schedules, we've devoted time to family and student contact. As things change, we'll be sending out robocalls, and we'll be posting on Facebook, on Twitter, our website. We're doing our best to communicate with you, yet not drive you crazy, right, with constant calls. But when we do call, there's important information. We really hope that you will take our call. You can postpone and listen to it later. Many of these calls are backed up with email. And students who have not engaged, we will do everything to reach out. And it's not like we want to be truant officers and catch people being naughty. We want to know where you are. We want to know that we can support you. We want to know what might be impediments to you being able to access the educational program. We care about you. We care about our students, and we want to be engaged with them. So we also participate in a state program called Engage that also might have someone contacting you to see how we can support you. And now we're going to move to the topic of social emotional needs. You'll hear the term social emotional learning. You'll see the word, the acronym SEL. So can you first of all tell us what is social emotional learning and what does that mean?
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Sue O'Brien, and I proudly serve as our district's director for student wellness. And I think the first message, Dr. Garcia, I'd like to share with our families is that, and I say proudly, that our district, our #1 priority is attending to the emotions and the social needs of our students. And when we talk about that, we're talking about really focusing on building relationships with our students. And we're going to use different strategies and different approaches to do that.
I want to reiterate, I want to interject rather, not reiterate, that this will be stronger and different than when we stood up that, overnight program that we did last spring. So I want people to know, as you're comparing, they're saying all this great stuff. That wasn't my experience. This is a new program. I just want to reemphasize, reimagined, reinvented, rebooted. Carry on, Ms. O'Brien.
Great, thank you. And just, in the spring, we were able to make, contact with families and not with others. So this summer was absolutely time for us to try to brainstorm about how we can actually make those real connections with our students and our families. So the first thing, and I know Ms. Romero spoke about this earlier, are daily check-ins. So not only is that going to be a time in the morning before as class is starting for the teachers to not only check in and see how the students are feeling, but also, are there things that are keeping them from being able to do their work? Do they have urgent needs that we need to attend to immediately? And if they need help with their schoolwork, or if they need to, check in with a teacher or a counselor or a coach. So it'll be a short survey that our students in grades 3 through 12 will engage in. So this is very new for us. And hopefully the goal is, of course, is to get as much information as we can and get whatever supports and services to them in a timely way, right? The other thing is we've spent some time planning for and have professional development in our plans for activities for kids to connect with their teachers and the teachers to connect with their students. We call those icebreakers. And, so that we can bring, like I said, that connection with the students.
And hopefully make it fun too, right?
Right, yeah. The other part that we spoke about earlier in the presentation is this dedicated time every week. And that's what we call the social emotional learning, when we actually take time during the day, during our weekday, to teach the students about these different skills. And that's all part of what we would traditionally call our prevention work. And that will continue. The good news is that our prevention materials are moving online. So our other companies have really adjusted their work as well. So that time we teach kids how to manage their emotions, they set goals, they learn how to feel empathy for themselves and other kids, how to build positive relationships, and then make responsible decisions. So those are all the strategies or the skills that we teach the kids through our curriculum. The other, that's my dog. We're also going to use what we call evidence practices or strategies that teachers can embed actually when they're teaching. So something like group work is actually a social emotional skill, but it's something that teachers generally do all the time. And we're going to, we have all information in that. Those are strategies that we know that work to help the well-being and maintain the well-being of our students, and then especially for kids who've experienced trauma. We're going to maintain our school wellness teams, and those are teams that are established at every school. The makeup of those teams look a little bit different, but those teams, what their job is to really staff student and family issues, and then of course respond quickly if there's something really pressing and an emergency. We're going to continue to refer students to our behavioral partners, our behavioral agencies for mental health services. We've always had school-based mental health services. We just had to tweak our process a little bit because in the spring, we really just wanted to make sure our kids got there and the parents got the services they needed. And so this year we just tweaked how our referral process looks like, and that referral could happen from your school counselor, it could happen from the social worker, to make sure that we're making sure that we have those connections to those services. And then also we're going to have individual and group counseling support groups that can be done with our school counselors. We have also tremendous partners in our community like Gerard's House, the Sky Center, Girls Inc., and they come in and help us facilitate some of these groups. Some of them are very specific to groups, while others can work on, supporting students with anxiety, depression, stress, of course, particularly at this time. Throughout all of this, Dr. Garcia, it's required us to really up our game and provide training for teachers. We're going to have counseling training, of course, we do that, but it's going to be more. Training for our support staff and then also for parents. So we have a comprehensive framework that's on our district website that outlines more things in detail, but we will be communicating what those opportunities are for parents along the way.
And it was posted on our website today under social emotional learning. So you might want to check it. It has wonderful resources. Thank you so much, Ms. O'Brien, for your leadership and your team.
Thank you.
Around student nutrition, will we still be providing food services during remote learning?
Dr. Garcia, good evening. I'm Superintendent Christy Wagner, Deputy Superintendent Christy Wagner, overseeing operations and school support. We strive to continue to provide student nutrition services to our families throughout remote learning and any type of learning that comes our way, whether it be a return to in-person or a continuation of the remote. We're expanding those services coming up in the next couple of weeks. And here's someone who might need some food service peeking over my shoulder. We're expanding those services through delivery via our school buses. We'll be bringing food right out into our communities, breakfast and lunch daily. using our regular bus routes. And we'll be posting all of this information, including prices, how to fill out a meal application, when and where to get food to your kiddos. We'll be getting that all on our website. It's very important to us that we don't have a disruption to that service.
Gatsby, it's my turn. Let me finish with your mom. We have one more question for her. Is this an example of working from home, Ms. Wagner?
Just a little bit.
How will the state and district support, by the way, how do I complete a student nutrition application?
The applications are available online. You can go to our website and follow our student nutrition link. We'll also be providing quite a bit of information via robocalls over the coming weeks with details on how to complete the application, if you should complete the application. And it's really important, if your financial status has changed during the course of the pandemic or since last school year, that you get online and search for that application. We can help you through our student nutrition office. That number is also on our website, and your school principal can help direct you to the school meal application.
Just before I ask you the last couple of questions, we are going to go into questions and answers. So Mr. Beta, if you can go ahead and turn on the live chat. I think it takes about a minute for it to actually work. How will the state and district support school staff members in our community at large who have school-aged children who might need childcare?
Superintendent Garcia, I think you wanted me to address that one as well. I am working with our community partners, Boys and Girls Club, United Way, the Kids Campus at the community college, the city, many others that I won't be able to name tonight, to strategize and see how we can expand what is typically their aftercare and summer programming to include a much needed space for young children to be, not just during the school day, but after hours if their parents are working. And so we are working hard to come up with a menu of options and price points and ways to access those services. So we're looking forward to releasing that in partnership with our various agencies throughout the community. And I would be sad if I had to get off without telling you that Gatsby wants you to know he has an iPad for remote learning in kindergarten.
Terrific.
Like
Yay, we can hardly wait. Gatsby's going to be a kindergartner, right?
He is, and he got an iPad today, and he's pretty excited about that.
Well, we're very excited too. And I think that Ms. O'Brien just already mentioned after school programming. So we're going to go ahead and start with questions and answers. And I'm waiting to see the live chat. I don't know if I need to go to a different format because I'm not, here we go. I can see it now, I think. Okay, nothing as of yet. So I just need to move my chat box somewhere else because it's right in the middle. So we're still waiting for questions. Mr. Abeda, has that gone live yet?
Yes, ma'am, it is live.
Okay, so we'll wait. We'll do a little wait time here. Anybody else want to add anything? While we're waiting, Ms. O'Brien, I know that bullying can be an issue. You want to address how we'll be dealing with that this year? And every year we have, but what is in plan now that we're in remote learning?
Sure. Well, a continuation of services that we have in training actually comes from that curriculum that I spoke about earlier, our second step. So in addition to the classroom teachers, our school counselors will be delivering our bullying prevention lessons, and they're typically 4 lessons. And so what we found greatest success with was actually going into the classroom and delivering these services. So that's one. What is to come actually is we are working on the process for how parents can report bullying, and so that those reports go in and we can respond to those immediately. So we're working on revamping that whole process, and it will be up and running when we return to school.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We have a question. When will students have access to their new schedules and learn who will be their teacher for the school year? I'm going to start with this. We need all the parents to let the schools know if you're going to be in for the rest of the school year, if you're choosing full remote or you're coming back in hybrid, because we can't assign till we know the numbers. So, schools will be calling, but if you did not fill out the questionnaire, please call your school, let them know your child's name, their date of birth, their student ID number and grade, and what you are expecting, what you want for the rest of the school year. Everyone is starting in remote in terms of the governor's order. So please get that information. The sooner you do that, the sooner you will know your child's schedule and who your teacher will be. When can you extend remote learning to January to protect students and families? Right now, the governor's order, calls us to submit a plan for moving into hybrid. Those plans had to be negotiated. If you have a union, if you're a collective bargaining district, it had to be negotiated with your union. That was a requirement when we submitted the plan. Our teachers union is the Santa Fe National Education Association. And our plan is that we submitted to the PED, we're still waiting for approval, is to be on full remote the first 9 weeks. I understand someone sent me a text. People have been texting me all night that infection rates right now, spread rate is currently was at 1.0 and now is at 0.8. So we're below that. And so if it stays there, then we have a pilot phase in so that we can test out our protocols and whatnot, starting with 5 to 1 and then adding to that point. But right now, let's focus on full remote. That's where we're at, and please communicate with your families. When can you extend? I got to go back here. Let me slide this up a little bit. Let me move my cursor. I got to go back. I missed a question. When can you extend remote learning to? Okay, we already read that. How will classes like band be taught? Will kids be able to join band? Who wants to take it?
I can take that question. Band will be taught virtually. There's a lot of professional development right now on how to engage kids in music. And in the springtime, we had instruments, we had distribution sites for instruments, and that would be the case as well this fall.
Very good. If the family chose hybrid model and they want to change to remote learning, if they're concerned about their child's safety, please call the school immediately and let them know that you want that change. The sooner that people can give us that information, the sooner we can plan and build those schedules. So if you've had a little bit of buyer's remorse, please contact your school immediately, again, with the student name, date of birth, student ID number, and grade. Last year, a number of links sent by teachers didn't work on kids' devices, and parents needed to use their computers. For example, YouTube or through a Zoom. Will this be fixed? Dr. Ryan?
Unmuting. There's also a question about can you use a personal device, a desktop from home? And yes, that
let's go with the first one. Just go with my question. So a number of links were sent last year. They and didn't work on the kids' devices, and parents needed to use their computers. For example, YouTube or Zoom. Will this problem be fixed?
So we're held by federal law with certain groups of kids. So kids under 13 aren't allowed to have a YouTube account. So it's not something that's broken. It's something that's complying with that federal law. We are reducing the number of logins, systems that you have to access to make it a little easier, but we will comply with the safety of children and the federal laws.
So we'll just have to work with our teachers, I think, to remind them that for certain grades, they should not have assignments that require YouTube. And some kids might be wanting to get on YouTube, and so we just need to follow those rules, but we will communicate that with teachers. The next question is, can a third grader use a desktop computer instead of the device given?
Yes.
They can. And will Google Hangout work for kids to socialize with classmates?
We don't encourage Google Hangout or allow Google Hangout for the kids to have one-on-one. That's something that the teacher should be monitoring, and there should always be a teacher in the Hangout when kids are there.
Really good advice. My sixth grader complains about screen size on her Chromebook. She said it's hard to see. How can we use our own device with a larger screen or better optics? Would you provide a simple download?
There's nothing really that has to be downloaded. She just has to log in with the credentials, her Santa Fe account, email, and password, and she should be able to access those systems.
Oh, that's terrific. And will parents have to take their children to the schools for breakfast and lunch, or is there going to be a designated area? Ms. Wagner.
So yes, we will have at least 2 locations in the district to be determined where people can go and continue to use the grab and go model we've been using since March. But the rest of our lunches will go out, our breakfasts and lunches will go out on bus routes throughout the community. And so folks, even who don't have a bus rider, will be able to access the nearest bus route online on sfps.info, and they'll be able to find the nearest time and location to pick up meals for their children. So yes and no, we're coming out to you, but we might not come directly to your home, but we'll be closer to you than having to come into a school site, and you'll be able to find a bus stop to pick up your meals.
Terrific. Instruments weren't distributed at my child's school in the spring. Will musical instruments be distributed this time?
I can answer
Yeah.
that now.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just spoke with actually the director for music today. And in fact, they're designing the plan right now for distribution. So they have some music instruments that are being brought back in order to be fixed because something's wrong with them. And then they're also going to distribute out as well. And you should be getting the plan soon.
Are the schedules flexible? If for some reason our child cannot be online at a time, can they make it up later? And will teachers be recording their lessons?
I would say that teachers will not necessarily be recording their lessons. Maybe a few will. But the whole idea of having a structured time for students and making sure that they're online with their teachers for direct instruction is very important to us. So we hope everyone will follow that schedule.
If an elective is full, how are students placed in other classes? I would imagine it'd be the same, right?
And the same means that they have picked alternative electives. So when one is full, then they will go to their next elective.
Says the gating criteria can change week to week. What will that impact? Will that impact kids going to school weekly? I mean, I think this is going to be a statewide issue. I think that the governor's public health order is based on a variety of gating criteria. But I think once we're in a certain period of time, we will get more directions on that. And so I'm just going to have to trust the process. I really do not have an answer that I can give you based on fact. I could give you a lot of opinion, but I'd rather not do that. If a family chose hybrid, can they change to remote? I think we already answered that question, and we prefer that you make that decision now. But of course, what expectations do Santa Fe Public Schools have for children and family? Regular attendance, completion of assignments? How will the district communicate its expectations of family and children? I think we already said it a while ago. Yes, we expect attendance. Yes, we expect students to complete assignments. It's school. This is not the let's get used to being on remote learning that people experience this spring. This is remote learning. We have put a lot of time, and I mean pretty much the whole summer, working with teachers and experts in curriculum and instruction, information technology, instructional technology, digital learning, all the experts in social emotional learning, special education, consultants, etc. To build a very robust learning experience for your child. And so this is not like, okay, we're going to make do till we get back to school. This is real school. As Ms. Sink said earlier, it's intended at a minimum that children make a year's growth in a year's time. Our challenge will be to get kids caught up if they're behind. There haven't been any questions yet on assessment, but we will be assessing the students using formative assessment at the beginning of the year to see where they're at. We'll be doing that mid-year and at the end of the year so that we can monitor progress and address skill gaps. Remind the audience, okay, yes, there are questions that may have come up around hybrid. Tonight's town hall is about the full remote learning model. As we get closer to going into a hybrid program, but I know people are trying to make a choice. So let me just explain again about hybrid. So let's say that Ms. Sink and Ms. Lucero are in group A, and Ms. O'Brien and Ms. Wagner are in group B. The group A, those two ladies are going to be in class on Mondays and Tuesdays and remote on Wednesdays. All right, their teacher will be teaching Ms. O'Brien and Ms. Wagner, who are in group B, at the same time remotely. On Wednesdays, everybody is in remote. We do real good deep cleaning on that remote day. On Thursday and Friday, it's the other way around. Ms. Wagner and Ms. O'Brien they're in group B, they will be in class Thursday and Friday, while group A, Ms. Sink and Ms. Lucero, will be on remote. That is the hybrid model as it is being presented right now. How many teachers have opted out of hybrid? You don't really get to opt out. You can ask for an accommodation. If you're over 65, you automatically get it. If you are have certain conditions that make you more vulnerable to the effects of contracting COVID, you can apply. And then there's a third tier if you live with someone who may be pregnant, have these other pre-existing conditions that if you brought it home would be dangerous. Right now, do we have an approximate number, Ms. Wagner, of teachers? I want to say what, 150 around there?
Something around there. Get the exact number for you.
We have 900 teachers. However, if you saw the survey results that came out recently, today, this afternoon, we have large numbers right now of families that want remote for the entire year. So teachers maybe that had not planned or asked to be remote may very well be assigned to remote to meet the needs of our families. Is the district going to have standardized testing? I just talked about that a few minutes ago, not the formal standardized annual assessment that comes from the state. These are formative assessments, which mean that information helps us better adjust instruction, look at the skill gaps that kids have so that we can help close those skill gaps. But it is our intent, the way the lessons and the pacing, to get a year's growth in a year's time. Will we still use PowerSchool for grades and communicating with parents and students? Yes. Why are there no recesses? There are recesses break. Those are the breaks. It didn't say recess, but when you're in remote, that is your break. So if you want to have your child run around in the yard or do jumping jacks on the couch, that's up to you. Whatever, play with the dog, that's their recess. So there are breaks during the day. In hybrid, when they're in school, they will have actual recess out on a playground. If I keep my children home doing online classes throughout the entire school year, do I still have to contact the school to let them know? Absolutely. So if you did not fill out the form that was emailed home, then please contact the school and let them know that. If you filled out that survey, you do not need to contact the school. We already have that information. Otherwise, the schools will be contacting you or a volunteer may be calling you, but you could save us a lot of time by calling and leaving a message. Leave your name, your child's number, student ID number, date of birth, their ID, their grade, and whether you want to continue the school year in remote or in hybrid model, okay? Probably a good idea to leave your phone number in case there are any questions. If I keep my, okay, yes. Will Fridays be short days for elementary? I think the answer is no. Ms. Sink, would you like to talk to that?
Actually, we have Wednesdays instead of Fridays. And on those Wednesdays, the first of the morning, we will have class time. And we will have, mostly teachers will be using that time for one-on-one and help with students that need it. And then there'll be some classes such as music and band and that sort of thing during the day.
Okay. Our school's open so that we can call and update my contact information. They are open. They're not open for you to come in person, but you may call, you may send an email, and someone will call you back or respond to your email. Our principals are overloaded right now, so it may not be 24 hours, it may be 48 hours, but you will get a response. And so be a little patient because of this situation with people not responding to the questionnaire. I would imagine the phone lines are going to be tied up, okay? But you might want to send an email as well, and they will be responded to. We still have until 7:45 for questions, so we still have another 10 minutes. Are there any other questions that people may have at this time? We'll give a little wait time. While we do that, panelists, is there something that you had a burning desire that you thought, I really wish I should have shared that our families might be interested in for our students coming in grades 3 through 6?
Dr.
Oh, here we
Garcia,
go.
there
We
was
have
a question.
some more questions. Hold on one second, Dr. Ryan. How do we get school photos and yearbooks from the school? You'll be getting a message from your principal. They will have a schedule. It will be a drop and go. There will also be a time for students to be able to go back into school. Again, not everybody at one time. We have to follow the governor's health orders to get things from lockers, to pick up their supplies. So yeah, every school will be handling a little bit differently, but you will be getting notified about that. Will parents need to sit next to their children when they are participating in one-on-one therapy sessions? I think that's for you, Ms. Lucero.
Dr. Garcia, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Will parents need to sit next to children when they are participating in one-on-one therapy sessions?
So we do recommend that there is another adult while therapists are treating students, only for safety of students. So it is recommended. The only time that we're actually making an exception to that is with our social workers, because that is confidential between our social worker and our student. But if at all possible, another accommodation that we've made is we've had our educational assistants sit in on those therapy sessions as well. So if we can also, if it's something that cannot be done, if a parent cannot do that, we'll make accommodations so that there is another adult present.
I apologize, my allergies, and I wasn't able to mute it quick enough. I'm sure it was really loud. Can I tell you a little bit more about homeschool program? Yes. So there is a homeschool program. For elementary, it is at NAVA. You would enroll through NAVA in the homeschool program. You can attend for as much or as little as you want. But right now, I would recommend that people start with the hybrid, with the remote learning model. All schools will be in remote learning model, but the homeschool model is if you decide that you want to homeschool your child, but you want them to get art and music, or the other way around, you want to handle all the electives, but you want your child to, and this is primarily for 6th grade and below, that you would want the core subjects, reading and math, science, let's say, to be in school. Then you would enroll in that homeschool program. It has a code. You can contact the principal at Nava Elementary, Mark Ducharme, if you are interested in that. We also have Desert Sage Academy that will be an all online program using Edgenuity for grades 6 through 12. And that is a new program in the Santa Fe Public Schools. It's more individually paced and might be a great opportunity for people if you'd like to explore Desert Sage Academy. And that will be available online. When will we get a school list to purchase school supplies? Right now, we're asking parents to purchase minimal amount of supplies. There were quite a bit of art supplies and other kinds of supplies that were not used this spring. We know that money is tight for many of our families. So we'll be distributing some of those when people can come back to school to pick up their materials and whatnot. And so we ask that you hold off. We're also going to be doing a supply drive after those other initial supplies are distributed. Again, we know that the economy's been tough. Many people have lost their jobs. So we're asking you to purchase minimal supplies at this point. And I mean, just basically paper and pencil, maybe a box of crayons, but we are going to be providing those supplies, and we're going to be doing supply drives. So if you do have to purchase, it will be minimum. You'll hear more about that soon. Do we have a plan for parents who have to work during the day and the child might not be able to get online? So if the child cannot get online whatsoever, there will be outreach to look at other alternatives. There may be packets that the child might be able to engage in. I don't know if anybody on the team would like to address that further.
Dr. Garcia, we did do packets for parents. Usually it was for parents that did not have the internet, but I think we would have to have the parent get hold of the teacher and the teacher get hold of us, and we will help the school.
And also, you know, if you're working during the day, I would imagine somebody may be taking care of the child. This is going to be a very different program than it was last year. And so I think even the child's caretaker would easily be able to assist the child in the way that we've designed the program this year. And so you might want to have the caretaker or the babysitter, right, log in with them and get some of the training. But let your principal know if you have special issues so that we can figure out how we can best support you. If you believe your child needs an IEP, how will that testing be done?
Dr. Garcia, maybe both Sue and I can address this together. So we still are continuing our students assistance team and our MTSS process, where if there is an issue or a student is having difficulties, there's a process that we follow. We start collecting data on that student. We meet with the parents. We start to come up with strategies of how we can address their needs. And if it does eventually get to a place where an evaluation needs to take place, we are going to continue with remote evaluations. But Sue, I know that another component of that is our student wellness team also provides some strategies for students that are struggling in any way, which might be emotionally or academically. But Sue, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Like Julie was talking about, this MTSS, basically it stands for this multi-tiered system of support that we have in our district. And so our obligation that we have to follow is making sure that whatever interventions we put in place, and then we have to track whether or not the students are making progress or not. If a student has an obvious disability, then we work with special education and we make sure all that the necessary paperwork is done to get that student evaluated. But we do have an obligation to try the interventions, collect data on those interventions, and then determine at that point if the student is making progress, then we move toward an evaluation. If students
also, Dr. Garcia, if I could add, we are going to continue with our Child Find events, and that is for our 3- and 4-year-old students who are little ones who are having, you know, issues. We are taking those concerns and having individual appointments with parents and those students to make sure that we do identify those students early.
Thank you. So again, we have questions about picking up yearbooks, pictures, that sort of thing. You'll find out from your child's school. There'll also be a time for students who are, you know, going on to, let's say you're going on to high school, so that, you know, there'll be a time for you to come and get your stuff from your middle school or your community school, or you're going on to a middle school from elementary. There'll be a time for you to come and get your materials that you may have left behind. So your principals will come up with their own schedules and they will be communicating with you. We have a couple of minutes for a couple more questions. And I think we will finish with these. The questions that were not answered, we can collect them off of the YouTube chat, and they will be eventually in our FAQs. Is there an option to get math and English in textbook form in addition to online mode? And all of our textbooks we have moved to digital. There's very few that we do have workbooks, and I think a couple of and high school, there's a couple of content areas that might have a textbook like geometry. But this is where we were moving even before COVID-19 and the pandemic. When will I find out if my child got accepted into pre-K? You should have already been notified. So call 467-2000, 467-2000, and the individual that answers the phone will connect you with a proper department so that you can get that information. 467-2000. With remote learning, will there be any one-on-one time for students and teachers? Yes, I think we talked about that, like on Wednesdays and other times where teachers may work with students individually or on one-on-one. We also there will be tutors also that will be available to provide some support in groups of 2 for students. What about how in school students were pulled out for various levels of math and reading? Will this happen in remote? Yes, there will be group instruction. And so we are down to, we're at 7:45. Dr. Ryan, you had one last thing you wanted to say a while ago, so we're going to close with you. What did you want to add?
There was a question about grades and things being in power schools. Parents will have access now to much more information and open access about assignments and their students' work, their child's work. So it should be much more than we've had even in our face-to-face.
So I want to thank you for joining us in this town hall tonight. We're very excited about the rebooted, reimagined, and reinvented remote learning program for the 2021 school year. Again, if you did not fill out the form, please contact your school of your choice for 2021. We're excited for the new school year. We've worked really hard and it's going to be a great year. Thank you for choosing the Santa Fe Public Schools. A lot of options for your kids. And again, if you're thinking of homeschooling your child, I highly recommend that you start with us online, give it a chance, see how it works. It could be a great supplement to some of the things that you might want to do at home with your children. Have a wonderful evening, and here's to you for a great school year. Thank you.